Welcome to this session in the second part of the course in English. In this unit of speaking, we will go beyond theory, we will go into practice. We will listen to some great speeches, some songs, some poems, some film and video clips, and we will see what features of the accent of standard English we should acquire and how we can do that. Today I am going to use a video clip from a very popular film of the 1980s and a great film by any standard, the film called Gandhi, made by Sir Richard Attenborough. Actually, accent of any language, and different languages have different kinds of accents, different kinds of rhythm. Even before you know what is being meant, what is being said, as you listen to the language, you understand, oh, this is a different accent, or this person doesn't speak the same way as I do. How do we understand that? We understand that because accents are nothing but an aggregate of the tempo of speech, the number of pauses in a given time and given length, the length of vowels and varieties of consonant sounds. These 3 or 4 things coming together make accent of any speech, any language. Okay? They may differ in one, not in another. They may differ in 2, but not in 3rd or 4th. This is how accents are made. And then within any regional accent, there are sub-accents and there are sub-accents. Actually, we cannot peel it enough. People say that a language has dialects, a dialect has sub-dialects, then there are communities and castes and classes and families and individuals. No matter who differs from whom, they differ in this respect, that they speak either slower or faster, they pause here or there, or their vowels are long or short, or very long or very short, or they have a certain different kinds of consonants which are not there in many other languages. These things together make an accent. Standard accents of English spoken worldwide, not just by people in Britain or the United States of America or in Canada or in New Zealand or in Australia or in South Africa, not just by these, but by anyone who speaks standard English. Their features of English in these respects differ from features of English in other dialects. Okay? It's not that these features are not there in other dialects. There are, but the dialects of standard English have these features in one way, other regional varieties have them in another way, another manner. That's about, or maybe they have some shared features. That is also possible. Here today, we are going to look at the video clip of a speech from the movie called Gandhi, where Gandhi makes this brief speech. Actually originally in real life, this brief speech was given by Mahatma Gandhi at the Round Table Conference in London on November 30 in 1931. But in the movie, Gandhi Richard Attenborough brings this movie at the National Congress. It doesn't matter, The time and location hardly matters. What matters is how people like Gandhi, coming from a very humble background, and not able to speak English until about he was 33, until he became a lawyer, a barrister at law, well qualified, but so hesitant to speak that when he first time appeared in the court, the judge waited for him. The judge gave him all the encouragement he could in a law court in Bombay, but Gandhi couldn't speak. Gandhi returned the brief of his client, but then destiny has a way of happening. It so happened that within the next 2 or 3 years, events happened in Gandhi's life which made him not only one of the best speakers, one of the best public speakers in English, but also one of the best leaders the world has seen in the last 1,000 years or so. Okay. So let's look at Gandhi's speech. It's pretty simple. Of course, it is not Gandhi's speech. It has been rendered by the actor, the film actor Sir Ben Kingsley. He also got knighthood after acting in this film Gandhi. As the director of this film, Richard Attenborough got knighthood. Okay, lots of awards, lots of honors, because the movie is really that great. If you haven't watched it, you haven't watched something absolutely fabulous. You should watch this movie, and not just for what is said. Of course, listen to it for what is said, but also listen to it for how it is said, for both the manner and the matter, and there is so much to learn. Actually, it is Ben Kingsley's voice, but at this moment, at this point of time, it doesn't matter whose voice it is. What matters is this is how standard English is rendered. This is how standard English is spoken, at a certain tempo, with frequent pauses within the sentence and at the end of the sentence, and then all polysyllabic words, all words with 2 or more syllables stressed in a particular manner. So, listen to it first for its content, of course, and then rewind it and look at the text which we are going to give you, and then listen to the speech again, but this time your eyes at the text and your ears with the speech. And next time, like this, do it 2 or 3 times with or without the text, and you will get a feel, of the speech. And then I am going to ask you to engage with us in an exercise. All right, let's begin. Okay, come next. By the way, I forgot to speak about both Sir Richard Attenborough and Ben Kingsley. Richard Attenborough is a very noted filmmaker, and he was also earlier a soldier in the Second World War in the in the Royal British Air Force. Okay, and he did his own share of fighting for his country from 1940 to 1945, and after that he got into acting and filmmaking. You may have seen in some Hindi movies as well, movies like Shatranj Ke Khiladi by Satyajit Ray, or in maybe 1 or 2 other places. But this movie Gandhi got lots of awards worldwide, and also brought in a knighthood for Sir Richard. The actor Ben Kingsley also has had an illustrious career. He comes from a family of Gujarati and the British combination. His mother was a mother was a British woman, and his father somebody of Gujarati origin from South Africa, and he was born with an Indian name, and he went to a college in Britain, and later he studied theatre and became a well-known theatre actor, including rendering performances in Shakespeare plays, and earned quite a name before he was selected to do this thing, Gandhi. You can read about his life, and you can also watch his other movies, some very good movies indeed. Okay, let's look at the clip, the video clip. Just look at it for its content. Since the text is already there, I'm sure you should have no difficulty understanding it. Even then, we have transcribed the text, and we are going to give you the text now. Please look at it. Okay. As I told you, mark pause as you listen. Stop frequently every time there is a pause, and using hash after the word where you find pause, indicate that spot by using hash. Use hash for the spot where pause occurs. And after a sentence, of course there is pause in many languages including English. Use 2 hashes to indicate sentence pause, and 1 hash only to indicate pause at the end of a phrase. Okay? Let us do that first, and then later I may ask you to rewind and listen to this speech again and mark stresses on words that have 2 syllables or more. Okay? Let's do the first exercise. Let's listen carefully and mark pauses with hash. Please look at the script. Yes. It's a little bit difficult for you to notice where Gandhi pauses. Since I returned, so there is a pause after return. From South Africa, so there is a pause after Africa. I have travelled over much of India. There is double pause here, and I know there is pause again. It goes on like that. You can take your time, listen to the text and mark pauses, okay, for the entire thing, and compare it with the speech, and you will notice that some pauses come after many words, whereas some pauses occur after only one word. Okay, go to the next. Say for example, say this. Let's say second line, first line. First pause comes after 3 words. Second pause comes after 3 words. But the next pause comes after 7 words. Again the next pause comes after 3 words. And the pause after that comes after about 10 words. Actually 8 words. And the one after that, is equally long or equally delayed. So, look at the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Look at the 6th line, and those English liberal magazines that may grant us a few lines. How many? So it depends upon rhetoric. Sometimes some speakers, to emphasize certain parts, speak slowly, emphasizing every word. Okay? Sometimes they take lots of words together, run over them at great speed. So for example, whereas you have the first pause after here in this sentence, here, and then we have about 3 words, 6 words after which the next pause comes. Here we make speeches for each other, and the next pause comes after is still longer, and those English liberal magazines that grant us a few lines. Okay? But look at some other pauses later. but the people of India are untouched. So there is a pause after are, there is a pause after untouched. Okay? But remarkable thing is, no matter whether it comes after one word or it comes after 7 words, it always comes at the end of a phrase, or an which may be a noun phrase, an adjectival phrase, a verbal phrase, or an adverbial phrase. So, for example, here, but the people of India, that is a noun phrase, are a verb phrase, untouched, it is a complement to the verb, you can call it adjectival phrase. Okay? Once again, you have long stretch, their politics are confined to bread, 6 words, but the next comes after 2 words, and salt. So, whether a lot of words or few words, that depends upon dynamic factors like social situation, like the mood of the speaker, the education of the speaker, the occasion. In this case, Gandhi is as good at English as anybody else in his day. But remember, he is also a politician and he has an agenda. He has an item on the agenda. His item is to liberate India from the British rule. So, where he has to provoke people, where he has to inspire them, where he has to drive home a certain truth, he emphasizes stopping, pausing, taking, sometimes unusual pauses. Sometimes he is in a rush, in a hurry. Go next. Look at the first sentence on this slide. How long? The pause comes later. They see no reason to give their loyalty to rich and powerful men. 13 words before there is the next pause. At the same time, however, okay, look at the 5th line. My brothers, India, my brothers, only 2 words and there is a pause. India, 1 word, there is a pause. Is 7, only 2 words, there is a pause. 100, pause again. 1000, pause again. Villages, pause again. So, these things can be dynamic. You can have long and short pause, but every phrase in English in a sentence is followed by a pause. You see, pretty clear here, If there is a long phrase, there will be pauses within the phrase, but again at the end of the unit. So, 7, 100, 1000, it is a quantifier, but it has been broken into units, hundreds and thousands. That is how tempo and English word stress work. Try and listen to it again, and then after that try and say it yourself. Go next. And compare your work with the actual speech, and you will, wherever you differ, you can do it again and you can relearn. Do not hesitate. Look at the word stress. There are a lot of long words in this speech. By long I mean more than 1 syllable, 2 syllable, 3 syllable words abound. And in all of these words, there is the question where it is to be stressed, in the initial syllable, in the middle syllable, in the final syllable. In a bisyllabic word, is it initial or final? In a trisyllabic word, is it initial, medial or final? So, listen to it again, and even if it is boring, you may please go on, because skills improve best through practice, through drill. So, in a sense, it is your practice drill, and once you listen to it correctly, it is almost inevitable that you speak it correctly. And if you don't listen to it correctly, if you don't understand it, it is difficult for anyone to expect you to speak correctly. They are related, they are to work together. Okay, look at the stresses, pretty clear. Since I returned, so there are 2 syllables in this word, re and turn. What does Ben Kingsley emphasize? What does Gandhi emphasize? Not return, but return, not re. So that's why he says, since I returned. It does not say since I returned. No, that will be incorrect. The standard English pronounces it with stress on the second syllable. Since I returned. Again, there is another pause group, another phrase, noun phrase, or some people can also call it adjectival phrase because it begins with an adjective, from South Africa. Okay. So where is the pause in this? Where is the stress in this case? In the first syllable, in Africa. It does not say Africa. It does not say Africa. It says Africa. Since I returned from South Africa, not on the south, but on Africa. Okay. Usually adjectives don't take stress. In exceptional situations, they may take, say for example, the speaker might say, I don't mean North Africa, I mean South Africa. That's a very unusual marked situation. That way anything is possible in language. But here, ordinarily speaking, this word Africa is marked with a stress on the initial syllable. So you have Africa. Since I returned from South Africa, I have travelled, initial syllable, over, initial syllable, many more, so many, initial syllable again, many more years, It goes on like that. Try and listen, and for the remaining bisyllabic, trisyllabic, polysyllabic words, mark stresses and check your work with the word given here. If there is a mistake, please listen to it again and then do it. You will find that this is the best way to learn and change your own accent of English. All it requires is some guided practice. Thank you very much. Have a good day.